All right, we're getting the day started, which means lighting.
Yes,
of
sir.
course, every good video needs good lighting.
Absolutely. Get the ring light and the sandbags.
And in here, if you haven't seen it yet, the basics of the setup. Pretty simple, comparatively speaking.
Chicken adobo! What's more popular, chicken or pork? I don't know. But my kids, they love chicken adobo, and I've been cooking this more often. But what's unique about today is...
Hi, I'm Austin. I'm the executive producer on BenjiManTV Live. And today, we're gonna show you how we got 10 angles out of just 2 DJI Osmos on Benji's live cooking show in a minimal setup that we use every single time we go live using eCam. Now, eCam is the sponsor of today's video, but the reason for that is because we love eCam. We've been using it a ton here at Creator Secrets, even before they were a sponsor. It's an insanely flexible tool that we use for all of our regular live stream productions, from podcasting to this live cooking show to an interview show that's forthcoming on the channel. It is literally the heart of all of our shows we make because it unlocks the power of some of the existing hardware tools that we already have access to, that we're already familiar with, and that we did not even know had some of the capabilities that are unlocked by the software that we use to go live. Benji's cooking show is a perfect example of this, and that's why we're doing this one first, because for many years, Benji has been at the forefront of live streaming on YouTube. In fact, we've run full-on productions with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear in order to get the professional look that we've been trying to get on Benji's channel for many years. And by the way, they've all been done in his home kitchen. And so our goal is to create these streams that blow viewers away and make them come back every single week, week after week. Now, recently, we've gone all in on YouTube Live. Previously, Benji was known for his vlogging and his in real life style vlogging, where he's focused on specific topics, or on his wife's channel doing daily vlogging in the traditional style of the 2010s. And so, because it took so much effort in order to set up these hundreds of thousands, or sometimes just tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear in Benji's kitchen, it would take hours at a time. We would rarely go live on BenjiManTV because we couldn't justify it if we were just gonna do it a couple of times a week for an hour or two. It was too much of a disruption. And so instead, we chose to repurpose Benji's existing vlogging gear, his existing DJI Osmo Pockets 3 and 4, as well as his DJI mics, as well as his laptop, and unlock their capabilities with eCam to get an entire production level stream for a fraction of the price and a fraction of the effort every single week, week after week. And so today, you're going to get to see us actually set up and create that setup with a little bit of insight into how BenjiManTV Live's producer, Nouchaly, who you'll meet here again in a second, runs the show, sets up the show, and why he makes the decisions that he does in order to create the best stream possible using our setup with eCam at the heart. Now, at the same time, you'll also get a framework from me for understanding the key to this setup, which is eCam. But before we do that, I want to get back to the kitchen with Nouchaly. All right, while Nouchaly sets up the light over there, give you a tour of the gear here. So the basics, the core of the setup here is the 2 DJI Osmo Pockets. We use Pocket 3s, but we're working on a transition to the Pocket 4 for at least one of the angles eventually. Speaking of DJI, we have the entire DJI Mic pack here. What's great about this is that it connects wirelessly to the Osmos, but what we have found recently is that we get less latency if we use the receiver, so you'll see how that's plugged into our computer here in a second. And the last piece is an M5 MacBook Pro, which you'll see plugged in as well, and that's literally it. What, $3,000, $4,000 worth of gear instead of $20,000?
Yeah, for the most part, and that all comes just from the powerful M5.
That's crazy. So what we're about to do is take you through our entire setup process. At the very beginning, we're gonna talk about how we actually get the hardware set up and plugged in so that we're ready to go, and the interaction with Ecamm, the sponsor of today's video, in order to actually make it so that we have our gear showing up inside the actual software. Nouchaly is gonna guide us through, and then after the fact, you'll get to see us actually run an entire live production using Ecamm in this really simple setup. So, Nouch, all right, walk me through what you're doing here.
Yeah, so I'm just getting all our cameras ready to go to connect to Ecamm. When I say all, it's literally these two Osmos and then the mic receiver. So the thing that I like to start out first is this camera is always Benji's main camera, so it doesn't move. We like to put it here, and then you grab a DJI, or you grab a USB-C, plug it in here, you plug it into one side of the MacBook, flip the screen, and then there's some talking stuff that you need to allow. So when you turn it on, it's gonna recognize the USB is connected, you hit webcam, and then it should pop up on your eCam. And that's it.
Voila.
That's
super straightforward.
Angle number one. Angle two is our food kind of presentation one. We normally have a platform right here, but for now we'll just put it here. Grab the second cable, plug it into the back. Same thing, but one thing you do want to make sure you do is you're using an M5 MacBook or any MacBook Pro in general. You want to make sure that the Osbot connections are on different sides of the laptop. Then you open the camera. The same protocol is going to ask you for webcam mode. Webcam. And then it should automatically show up right here. Boom. Osmo 4, Osmo Pocket 3. Then lastly, what I like to do is connect the mic receiver. Pull this out. Make sure it kind of turns on automatically, but I like to just turn it on by myself. Hold that side, DJI logo goes on, and then you can plug this into another open USB-C port.
For that one, does it matter where you plug it in?
No, actually for the mic receiver, it doesn't matter what side you plug things in, but for the MacBook, we only have two USB-Cs on this side, one USB-C on that side anyways.
That makes sense.
Now you see the mic receiver, and now when I tap it, so I have the wireless microphone receiver, and then when I always check, I have levels just to tap the mic, and then you can see the levels right there.
In terms of hardware setup, what else is there to do?
That's pretty much it for the hardware setup. Everything else is all software based, how I build out my presets and eCam, and then how Benji sends me the TeamViewer code so I can take over at the studio.
It's pretty amazing. It's really that straightforward. We have a separate video there where Benji walks you through how he does this on a daily basis. I mean, most of the time we're not even here in the actual kitchen because this is literally Benji's house. He can just set it up on his own, give Nouchaly the code, and he's off to the races because it separates the concern between having someone physically here and controlling the cameras, because these are PTZs. You can use them pan, tilt, and zoom, all done remotely using TeamViewer and eCam in this scenario. One of the things I want to point out is actually how you came to these two angles really quick. Now, we're talking about Benji's production specifically here, but one of the things is that in your production, there are some principles that you could use in order to apply from what we've learned here to there. So, Nouchaly, I'm going to have you walk me through why we choose these two locations for our cameras, and then also where we put the MacBook in order for the final hardware setup in Benji's kitchen.
I am very mindful of where I do put my two DJIs because, like Austin said, there are principles that I do follow. So for example, this camera right here more or less never moves. This is Benji's A camera. Always stays here. Benji always knows that worst comes to worst, he comes in the middle and I cut to that angle. But
just for context, Benji's doing all of his cooking here on the stove and on this cutting board.
Yeah, for the most part, Benji kind of stays in his area. And then this camera right here, I flip it, and then this is the presentation camera. So more or less, I go over here and it gets the cut-in board angle right here. And then I can PTZ and go over here into the cooking stovetop angle right here. So I have Benji doing his cooking stuff right here, his prep, and then I have a picture-in-picture profile to show the stovetop and Benji talking at the same time.
And then where does the MacBook go amongst all of this? Because it seems like it's a little bit in the way right now, but I know we're just getting set up. So ultimately, where does it land?
So when I'm doing a remote broadcast like we are today, Benji normally likes to have the MacBook as a viewing monitor. So the laptop is this way. And then we have the camera, Benji's Ecamm, this way. So Benji's there, and then we have Benji's cam this way, and then we get him framed up.
So you can see, really, this is the amazing thing about this setup. From Benji's perspective, he gets an entire preview of everything that's going on. He sees what Nouchaly is doing. Because we have your audio coming over the MacBook speakers, you can also speak to him, and it's picked up in his mic, actually, is one way that we do that. And then from his perspective, he just gets to do the cooking, and it's entirely out of the way, which is pretty amazing. And one of the advantages of such a simple setup, using some clever tricks in order to get more angles than just the two that we have.
Absolutely, yeah. So we only have 2 angles, but with the PTZ functions, we're able to get like 5 to 6 different angles, being able just to pan, tilt, zoom all around the kitchen.
And there is one more thing that we get. This is plenty to get, and at the very beginning, this is what we did with our cooking setup, right?
Absolutely.
But you also have one other camera that we use occasionally. I wonder if we can show that setup as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we have an NDI, we use the Rode NDI Capture app, and it's basically able to use your mobile device as an onboard network camera for eCam.
As long as it's connected to the same Wi-Fi.
Yes, as long as it's connected to the same Wi-Fi. So you open up here, and then you come over here, and then you make sure NDI Cast is on. Oops. Turn it on. And then I go to my all sources, and boom, it's already connected. There's Austin. There's Benji. And I hear all wirelessly.
Pretty amazing in terms of how simple the entire setup is. And the thing I like the best about it is that it's using a bunch of gear that we already had at our disposal.
Yeah, this is a free app we're using. Thank you, Rode.
Check it out in the show notes because we will have a lot of the links there to all of the tools that you need. But you have your DJI Osmo, another one, which Benji uses for vlogging in the first place. He's using the microphone that he uses for vlogging for the setup as well. And then, of course, the phone app for the Rode. What's it called? Rode NDI?
Rode Capture.
Rode Capture. Yeah. Rode Capture, which shows up here as well. It's really that simple. And most of the time, like I said, Benji's doing the setup here on his own. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the studio remotely so that we're out of everybody's hair and actually set up eCam the way that Nouchaly would on a day-to-day basis. But there is one more step over here, which is getting us connected remotely. If you want to learn more about this, let us know in the comment section. We can make an entire video about how we actually run this remotely because, of course, Nouchaly could be here in the kitchen switching everything in eCam live, but since we want to be out of everybody's hair, we have a setup here on the computer that you can kind of walk us through.
Absolutely. And I don't want to, expose us too much, but we have a team viewer. You just have your ID and your password, and he gives that to me, Benji, and then I go to the studio, I plug it into our studio PC, and I'm able to connect it remotely.
Perfect. Let's go and go over to the studio.
Let's do it.
All right. Bye, Benji. We'll see you.
Bye. See you guys later.
While Nouchaly and I head over to the studio, I wanted to pause here and explain some eCam fundamentals. And I wanted to begin with a framework. eCam operates at 4 separate levels: inputs, virtual cameras, scenes, and outputs. These are the only 4 concepts that you need to understand in order to run eCam like a professional production studio. So let's go ahead and start with inputs. Inputs are like what you just saw Nouchaly and I do in Benji's kitchen. They're mostly the physical things that gets plugged into your system overall. So in our setup, these were our DJI Osmos and DJI microphone, as well as the wireless Rode NDI that Benji was using from his iPhone when Nouchaly turned that on over the air. So those are all things that are sort of physically plugged in. And you can see that line even beginning to blur with our wireless camera that we have using Benji's iPhone. That being said, there are other setups, including some of our own, that would include things like capture cards or anything else that you could serve as an input into your actual Mac when you're using eCam. I will say that on top of that, on top of the things that you can physically plug in, inputs can also be virtual captures or something happening in the system, like call-ins, screen captures, and more. And this set of inputs are the foundation for the rest of the system that you're going to be building using eCam. They're kind of like the colors of paint that you're getting, that you're putting on your palette. There's a lot you can do on top of these inputs, but they're the base reality of what you can do with the system. The second layer that you're probably going to encounter are what we call virtual cameras. I think that in eCam, you can see them in the same panel as the inputs. There's like a little virtual switcher that's usually at the bottom of the screen. It's long and horizontal and has all of the inputs that you have. You'll see one thing that I believe says inputs there, and then on the other side you'll see something that says AB. And those are the two setups that you have in order to get things done. In the virtual cameras, it allows you to create these virtual looks on top of the inputs that you have coming into your system, which lets you do things like simulate presets more than just the inputs alone. So you can control things like saturation, brightness, crop, pan, tilt, all of those types of things. I think you can even hook it into other types of presets that you have. But I'm gonna gloss over this for now because we rarely use them in Benji's cooking setup, as you'll soon see here. This brings us to the third layer of our eCam principles, which are called scenes. These are the most powerful piece of eCam. They are really where the magic happens in eCam. And it's really eCam's most powerful concept overall, as you'll see again here in a second. You can think of a scene as an entire live look for your stream with cameras, overlays, layouts, and even more that can be recalled in just a single keystroke or click at a moment's notice while you're live on eCam or while you're recording live on eCam. Now, before we get too conceptual, let's get back to the studio now, and you can watch Nouchaly actually set these things up. So pay attention. Where are the inputs? How do they show up? Where are the cameras, which we don't use a ton, the virtual cameras? And where are the scenes showing up? And Nouchaly will show you how he does that step by step. Here we are in the studio. Nouchaly getting set up with the remote. He's already logged into TeamViewer, it looks like.
Tapped in right here.
Again, let us know if you want a video about how we actually set up the remote side of things. After he's ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and get ready and show you how we do our actual eCam setup.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're all connected. Discord's up, TeamViewer's connected. We're ready to go. Nouchaly. So when we boot up eCam here, what you see is kind of the all of the windows that you'd kind of expect coming in. We have on the bottom, if you can give us a tour there, the Osmo joysticks basically for the PTZ controls that let us get the thing set. We're going to be using those a ton here in the coming moments. You can see Nouchaly moving one of the cameras around. In the middle there, you have our camera switcher, which shows you at the top, if you have all sources selected, the actual inputs. So for in this case, you saw us plugging in the Osmos, so it's the two Osmos. If you were to switch over to AB, it's a little more complicated, but like you said to me earlier today, we don't use that a lot, right?
No, for Benji's Man Cooking Live, we don't really go into all this other stuff over here.
So we're just gonna go ahead and switch back to sources, and that's gonna be our main focus for the day. But the next thing that you do is you get started on scenes, right?
Yes.
So if you look over here in the top left, why don't you walk us through what you're gonna do here in order to get the scenes all set up and ready to go?
So right when I get in, this is a new scene that we're doing. So normally I just put in a lot of placeholders and I kind of go and I build them out as I wish. So here I normally rename it to BenjiCam 1 because that's his face cam. Come over here, but as you can see in the scene menu, that's not the right angle. So we just got to go down to the one I want, and then I frame them up accordingly. For the most part, this is what the shot's gonna look like. So I know I'm safe here, and I just place my preset 1, and then I can save it here.
So I want to talk about the preset here thing for a second, but let's take a pause. So what you've just done is that if you take a look at the way that you've set up the actual entirety of eCam, you've done three really important things. The first one is you've created a scene, which lets you have basically a shot that you want to go out to the world.
Correct.
And here in your main program preview here, I don't know what do you call that main
My
thing?
program feed.
Yeah, your program feed. You can see that this is Benji's main wide camera. It's the one that we put to the, I guess if you're looking from the producer's perspective, to the right of the MacBook. And what you did is that you set it to one of our inputs here, our sources, so that way every time you click on this scene, it'll be this wide angle that you set from the very beginning. Now, the other piece, which is a little bit more subtle, is this preset over here. So walk us through one more time what you did, and then tell me more about why the presets are so powerful in this scenario.
Yeah, so with Benji's Ecamm, I just put preset 1 because more or less this is my default angle. So I know if something goes array during the live stream, I can always default, Benji knows to come to this angle and I can put it up. But for example, if I did move it this way to show some angle at the rice cooker, I can always, instead of messing with the joystick live, I just come back to preset 1, I recall it, and it goes right to there.
And that's the beauty of the presets, is that it lets you use these PTZ controls, but it lets you have that set up and ready to go at a moment's notice, so that at any point in the stream you can recall it and get back to a baseline that you already want to do. So why don't we go and start building out the second scene so people can see it a little bit more.
And before I forget, I want to do my hotkeys. So over here in eCam, the thing that I like is you click this little Apple command icon, you can type in your certain hotkeys, and normally people have like a Stream Deck or something, but for me, we just use the keyboard because it works for us. So now we're on number 1, but when I go to number 2, this is normally the cutting board angle, the presentation camera. So I normally get a little punch in right here. I kind of like this framing. I go down to here and I hit save. And then from there, we normally like to get a close-up of the cutting board as an additional angle. So I frame it up to my likings, come back down, hit preset 3, and then I save. And then from there, normally we always go to the stovetop. So I come over here, do my little changes, how I like it, and get the stovetop. And then I hit 4. And then I have the ability to go 1, 2, 3, that's it.
And so what you've done is that you've not only created a scene here, which gives you the shot and the ability to get to that second angle, but at the same time, you've also created a set of presets that let you change that angle as well. So just to walk through what we've seen so far, if you start on Benji's original scene, which gives you the wide, which is the camera on the right, if you go to scene number 2, which it looks like you're going to rename to presentation, maybe?
Yes, I was. There it is. So right here, presentation.
Then you can cut to the presentation camera, which is the camera on the left. It's more zoomed in, it's higher, which gives us more ability to get these kind of fancy angles. And at any time, if you want to change the actual thing that it's focused on, you can use your presets that you've saved and just hot fire to those things immediately.
And a fancy production note that we like to do is always cover our transitions. So before I make a move, right now, the second angle is showing the cutting board. But if we want to move to the stovetop, but I want to hide the transition of the camera head, I cut to Benji, I make my move, and then I cut back so it hides the transition and it just looks so smooth.
I want to get an instant replay on that because it's such an important tactic to understand, which is that watch carefully here as Nouchaly hides the cut. So right now, I want you to imagine from a viewer's perspective, if you actually start there on the presentation camera. So we're on the presentation scene here, which lets Nouchaly take care of that camera that's on the left. He's focused on the cutting board in this case, but wants to get over to the stovetop because something might be happening there. So what he'll do is he'll cut away from the thing that we want to see, so that way it's hiding the cut, and he'll get the preset ready, hit recall, and you can see it move there in the corner as he does it, and then he'll fade right on back over, and so seamlessly hiding that so that way it looks as if now he's got 3 cameras. And of course, the more presets you set, the more angles you get.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Anything else to get set up here before we get live?
Yeah, so now that I have my basics for Benji, since we only have 2 cameras, we always have a main angle, and then we have the food, what's going on, presentation, cutting board, all of that stuff. But then with eCam and dual mode, I like to have a stack. So with my stack, I go to preset 3, and I can just name this as PNP, picture-in-picture, picture-in-picture, and then kind of like slash as my stack for my vertical. So in my picture-in-picture, let's have the cooking presentation big, and then over here, I come down to my switcher and I grab Benji's angle, and then I put him picture-in-picture here, so on the horizontal stream, they can still see him while he's still cooking. But then for the vertical, I need to make sure he's there too, so I come from the same source menu, pick up Osmo Pocket 4, I pick up Osmo Pocket 4, drag it to the vertical, and then I frame it up how I like it.
And the amazing thing about eCam here is that Nouchaly is literally just dragging and dropping the sources onto the screen and positioning the way you might if you were using like a graphics software, even like something like Microsoft Paint even. And it gives you all of that customizability, and you can go really deep on this. This is another thing that you might be able to comment about, and we would be happy to give you a deeper dive if you're interested.
Absolutely.
All right, I know a lot was happening there, but I just wanted to break it down for you using our framework again. First, you saw Nouchaly prepare the scenes that we discussed last time, that really powerful third rung on the 4 concepts that explain the eCam framework. But on top of that, you also saw another more subtle feature that we use on every stream to make Benji's 2 Osmos look like 10 camera angles. The first principle that Nouchaly mentioned was the concept of an A camera, or wide shot. The whole idea here is that we have one stationary camera that is our source of truth. This is one that we rarely move unless we absolutely need to, using the PTZ controls on the Osmo, so that we always have something safe, quote unquote, to cut back to. We often frame this in the side of the setup where Benji can speak to it, and frame it wide so that you can see most of what is happening at the kitchen at any given point in time. One way you can think about your A camera is that it should be capturing the entirety of the scene at once, and that if you had to run the entire stream from a single camera, your A camera would be it. Our second camera, which we set up in the center of the action, we actually zoom in and literally place amongst the center of the set in this case. Before the stream, what you saw Nouchaly and Benji doing together is that we saw them set up what are called presets, which allow you to take that B camera and point it in different directions using the pan feature, tilt it up and down depending on what it's focused on, and zoom in on what it's focused on as well, using the DJI Osmos that Benji already uses every single day to vlog to pan, tilt, and zoom in what we call PTZ. This means that Nouchaly can remotely operate those cameras, even when he's not inside of Benji's kitchen at all. Sometimes he doesn't even have to come to the studio to set up because he can run it from his own computer. And it allows him to change the angle while also setting the presets in eCam to set up for different shots that are important on the B camera throughout the stream. The cutting board, the countertop, the stovetop, and more. Anything that we might want more detail on as a viewer in the midst of a cooking show. There is a second piece with those presets that's a little bit more subtle as well. We call it masking a camera move, which is kind of a fundamental tactic in any live production. And basically what it is that we use that A camera that we set up to be this sort of wide angle in order to hide the movement of the B camera between the different presets that Benji and Nouchaly set up beforehand. So I want you to imagine that you're on a B camera focused on the stovetop at any given moment in Benji's stream. Well, let's say that we want to cut over to Benji preparing the next thing that's about to go into that stovetop. One thing you could do is use the preset feature on eCam to just have that DJI Osmo PTZ whip around to the cutting board where Benji will be doing a lot of that prep work. But it might cause the viewer to be a little bit nauseous if the camera is whipping around really fast back and forth, which it will do if you do it that way. And so instead of using that preset raw, what we do is we cut over to our A camera and show the entirety of what's happening, and Nouchaly behind the scenes will use the preset to move over to the secondary angle, and then cut back to that angle and pretend like it's an entirely new camera. To the viewer, it looks like an A, B, and C camera, but we know that since we only have 2 hardware pieces, it's actually just an A and B camera with some really fancy editing and some careful use of presets along the way. There is one more thing, which is dual mode. Now, because Nouchaly is thinking like a viewer, like we were just talking about there with the masking concept, when he's operating eCam, he has the ability before the show to create different scenes that he thinks the viewer might want to see as Benji cooks. That's that 3rd rung on our 4-step stack of eCam concepts. Here's some examples of what those scenes conceptually might be. Just Benji talking to the audience through that A camera. He's just like me right now, looking at his DJI Osmo and talking straight to the audience. The second one might be Benji cooking up something really close with presets on the B camera. So that would be the stovetop, the countertop, the cutting board, etc. Anything else that the B camera can capture depending on whatever he's cooking on that day. The third one might be like a mobile wireless iPhone camera, that Rode NDI thing that we were talking about before, where Benji is able to use it to go outside and cook something on the grill, or move to a different part of the kitchen and show himself removing something out of the oven, or something like that. Or maybe it's a combination of these, and there's a picture-in-picture where both Benji can talk to the audience, but also the audience can see what's being cooked at the same time. You heard Nouchaly call that explicitly. Each of these became a scene that Nouchaly created in eCam over there on the left side of the screen. And those are the basic building blocks of the actual stream itself. When Nouchaly is cutting between each of them, he's choosing a scene to be clicked. But there's an additional advantage to these layers in eCam, which is something I hinted at before, because one scene is conceptually each of those shots that I described before. On top of the horizontal version, which we've always done on Benji's cooking show, he now is able to custom prepare ahead of time a vertical version of this at the same time. And so the scene, for example, where it's just Benji talking to the screen, Nouchaly can put a perfectly cropped version of that on the vertical stream as well. And even more amazingly, he can create a bespoke version of the picture-in-picture that shows up in the horizontal, that also shows up well in the vertical because he's vertically stacked Benji talking to the camera, as well as the cooking happening below it. This is unheard of across most of the other softwares that we've used. It definitely has not been as easy in the other softwares that we've used. And so it has unlocked our ability to design once, to let Nouchaly and Benji design the stream once, and then never have to think about it again while you're live, and still get a live cut that works in both horizontal and vertical, which is a game changer for us when it comes to the 4th layer, which is outputs. But because we're too deep in the weeds here, let's get back to the studio and we'll talk about that later. If you were just to end it there, that's plenty to play with if you're just getting started with something like eCam and are trying to go for a real production quality broadcast using this really simple hardware setup and the basics of eCam software. Nouchaly, I think there is one other question I have, which is that when you're building out this dual mode, how do you choose which options to have? Like when you're trying to think like a viewer, do you have any tips or tricks for somebody who's trying to build out these scenes in a way that works easily for a producer like you?
Yeah, so for the most part, everybody's coming to our cooking stream. They want to see what we're cooking. So a good rule of thumb is I'll always have a close-up shot of the action, and the action's always cooking, or the action is either Benji. So I have a hard shot of horizontal and vertical of Benji's angle, and then I have a horizontal and vertical as just the cooking. But if Benji's explaining something farther and I feel the need to bring him up just to give the viewer to put the face to who's saying it, I cut to this angle and I have the picture-in-picture on both horizontal and the vertical stack.
Awesome. The last thing I'm going to ask you about here is how we choose our outputs and where we go live, but I'll let you finish getting set up here and then we'll get ready to go and you'll get to see the actual production.
All right, thank you.
So now that Nouchaly's got all of the eCam setup squared in a way, and of course we've got our hardware setup squared in a way, what he's going to do next is he's actually going to get set up on YouTube Studio so that way we can go live on YouTube. Now, on a normal day, we might also go live on things like Facebook, Instagram, etc. Today, we're staying focused on just doing YouTube horizontal and YouTube vertical so you can see the use of dual mode on eCam. So here on his right, he's got the YouTube studio. He's setting up a normal live stream. Here on the left, he's got his eCam set up. Nouchaly, take us through whatever you're up to next.
Yeah, so actually right now, Benji's taking a thumbnail image and then we're gonna do our magic sauce and he'll give it to me. And then in our YouTube studio, we can, we're doing chicken adobo today. So title, cooking chicken adobo for my family. And then I go in here, I change the thumbnail to what we want it. And then to the visibility, we always kind of schedule it out so our fans can be ready for us. So I do public and then I schedule it. I'm guessing we're gonna go live around like 11:15. I would click that and then when I click done, it goes and it schedules it out to BenjiManTV YouTube account.
One other thing before we go live here, Nouchaly is checking all of his scenes to make sure that the audio is unmuted on all the ones that he wants unmuted and muted on the, I think, just one that isn't, right? Can you explain why that is a unique thing with eCam?
Yeah, so with eCam, each scene is like custom to each kind of sound mixer that you have toggled on or off. So for example, on my fade to black, when I have it fade to black, I have the wireless microphone receiver muted and obviously everything's in black because I don't want anything on. And then when I go to the presentation camera and all my other scenes that I have the audio unmuted and we're ready to rock and roll.
And so just like you use any other input in eCam, audio is the same way, that if you have something set up in a scene, it saves all of those things pre-configured, including the audio, which we didn't know at the very beginning when we started using eCam. So make sure that you're all ready before you go live, which is why it's so important for you to check everything, just like Nouchaly is here. All right, thumbnail up, eCam prepared, ready to go. Let's schedule this thing and show everybody what it looks like when you schedule it in eCam.
Right, so I anticipate 11:15 just a good, even if we go earlier, that's good. Schedule that out.
Over in eCam, you can see that up at the top that it gives you the options about what you're gonna do. And for Benji's cooking show, we always stream and record because we like to have the high quality 4K mix down of Nouchaly's cuts available to us immediately after the live stream. And then what you can see down here is there's an option to hit new, but then there's also this thing that says upcoming because you just scheduled it, right, Nouch?
Yes, and one thing that I wanna make sure, the reason that it went from YouTube straight to eCam is because in the back end of YouTube, or in the back end of eCam, we tied in BenjiManTV cooking. So that's how it automatically shows up when we schedule it live. And then from here, we go into here, it shows chicken adobo, cooking chicken adobo for my family. But you also, if you're gonna do dual mode, you wanna make sure you come to here, hit this laptop icon and it says horizontal, vertical, but then it has a third option that says horizontal and vertical. And you wanna make sure you have the laptop and the phone icon, and then you wanna apply your changes. And then when you go back to your YouTube studio, eCam takes care of all of this. So after it's done, still loading. Yep, all right, that's good. And then when you come to your YouTube studio, you should see two streams now, right? So one has the phone icon right here. That's our vertical with the phone. And then eCam also spits out the horizontal. And this one has no phone icon.
And if you go back over to eCam and you go to the place where you went to that upcoming option and you go into the back end of this where you chose the horizontal and vertical, this is also where you do things like schedule out other streams on Instagram or on TikTok, etc.
So we can add, for example, we have done Instagram, we have done Facebook, we have done Creator Secrets, so you can go to multiple outputs.
And we're not gonna do that today, but if you do want to live stream out to multiple outputs, that's the power of eCam and one of the reasons we really love the software and of course the tool of dual mode because not every platform supports every format. So you're pretty much ready to go live, right?
Yes, sir, that's it.
That's it. So I'm gonna kind of snoop here, but for the most part, I'm gonna let you do your thing.
All right, thank you.
Let's talk about the fourth layer, which is outputs, where the magic really happens, where the rubber meets the road. Once you've built out your eCam setup, just like Nouchaly has done for Benji's cooking setup here, you get to choose where it goes live. Now, of course, we here at Creator Secrets are pretty partial to what's happening on YouTube. We also truly believe in the power of all of the social platforms, from TikTok to Instagram to Facebook to YouTube Shorts. And the beauty of eCam is that it lets you take one stream and put it out to all of these platforms at once. And for us, you understand that we're going to be live streaming on YouTube most of the time for Benji's show. But what that means is that we get both the horizontal and the vertical options that are created using eCam's dual mode that Nouchaly set up with the scenes the last time that we spoke and in everything that you just saw. When it comes to the outputs though, it doesn't stop there, because while we go live on YouTube, we can also go live on Facebook, we can also go live on Instagram, and we can choose the set of outputs that work for the actual platforms that we're going live on. For example, on Instagram, we think it makes most sense to go live vertically. And so we can take the vertical stream from dual mode and send it directly to Instagram, just like we're sending it to YouTube Shorts. At the same time, we can take that stream and send it over to Facebook, gone horizontally, because we think it makes sense to go horizontally on Facebook. And we get all the benefits of reaching each of those platforms in one unified space overall. There's a lot more to be said about outputs. I think that's a conversation for another day. If you'd like us to make a video about how we get the outputs set up in eCam and what our philosophy is about where we're going live with BenjiManTV Live or any of our shows, let us know in the comments section as well, and we'll talk about it another day. But suffice to say, with eCam, once we've built from our inputs, the physical things we plug into our devices, to the virtual cameras, which are crops and adjustments of those physical inputs, and then ultimately scenes, which are the compositions that are actually the building blocks of our live stream, we are able to go live to a multitude of outputs and multiply our efforts across all of these platforms using a really small crew, just a little bit of gear, and of course, the heart of the setup, which is eCam Live. Let's go ahead and finish things off, and thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one. Let us know. Do you want us to make a video that speaks to how we actually set up our live? Do you want us to make a video that speaks to how we get our output set up? And of course, as always, we'll see you in the next one. All right, Nouch, long day today. It's actually several hours after we finished because guess what? We stacked them, right?
Yes, yes.
You got them back to back because it's a machine, but I wanted to quickly debrief because I thought the stream went great, as always, and this time, I mean, you even set it up from scratch. It didn't even take that long, and it all seemed good to go, but
cool thing with eCam, straight shot.
Exactly. And so for us, you know, there's a little bit that happens at the end of the show, which is that, yeah, I mean, in this case, we went right into more shows to record, but also there are a few other things that we always do as a part of the wrap-up process to make sure that, you know, we put the bow on things. So can you walk us through a little bit of what you end up doing after a stream?
Yeah, so with BenjiManTV Live, Cooking Live specifically, we normally take a second thumbnail of the actual product of the food that we're cooking because, you know, we're not a cooking channel over here. We don't make it and then take the thumbnail.
Yeah.
So we always take a second thumbnail option after we're done cooking with the finished product. And then the thing that's cool with eCam is we actively stream and record to the MacBook at the same time.
And we do both the horizontal, vertical, and each ISO cam as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that gives us the ability to send all those files to our editor, and then they're able to clip and cut it as a standard regular video from the live, or they can be repurposed into Judy's vlogs.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the amazing thing I think about eCam and the fact of us being able to use dual mode is it gives you both setups already set up to be clipped and edited, so you don't have to do any of that in post after the fact. And so literally now, again, it's the end of the day, you basically get to roll out because the studio's ready to go. It was easy to tear down the kitchen setup, and we're off on the next one for next week.
Absolutely, off to the next.
All right, Nouch, thanks.